on. What are you doing? Didn't go live. Why didn't you go live? What's going on, Billy? There we go. I don't know. Acting weird. This is going to be a vertical theme tonight, so we'll see how well that does. I got really big projects to do tonight. Um, as you can see on a vertical, this is, yeah, that's the 3-inch one. I got talked into making the granddaughter a dollhouse. Well, too close. So the dollhouse is built, sort of. Most, well, it's built. I'll put it that way. It's built. It's over in the finish room. It's getting turned snow white, and we're working on furniture. So you have a kitchen counter with this. This is going to be. I already have one of this size done and one of the smaller size done. So miniature style bowls. So that's what we're working on tonight. What is next weekend? Or this coming weekend, I guess you'd say, since this is a weekend already. There's kind of a fun little tenant to try and make in there. It could have made this side bigger. Oh, okay. I'm trying to rush this August thing or something. Yep, that'll work. That side actually could be a little bigger. So I think in this fashion, I'm gonna make all four of these little things round. Put a tenon in there. Because the part that I have facing the tailstock is actually the top of the bowl. Just had to make sure that cute little tenon that I put in there is going to work. Another shoulder problem. That doesn't sound fun. And as things would go in this project, everything's just going to keep getting smaller. First one started out their life at 3. These are at 2 3/4, I think. That's fine. So not quite round. It doesn't really matter. One thing about making little ones, it's actually kind of pretty quick to do them. I think to me, it's some of the small stuff like this is almost harder to get the right proportions and the right curves on them. But also kind of different. These are the long nose jaws by Vicmark. Not necessarily made for what I'm using them for today, but I mean, they'll work. They have a bit of flex to them. They will grip very small stuff, which is what they're designed for, more for doing like finials and things like that, not necessarily little miniature bowls. As long as we get these done, the real challenging part of the project is a dining table. Top is no big deal, but my daughter come up with, oh well, it should have turned legs on the dining room table. When we're talking about a leg, it's going to be about 4 inches high, 4 inches long, a little over, well, the blanks are a little over 4 inches long. The table, or not the table, the legs are only going to be about 5/8 inch square. So I think that's going to be the exciting part of them. So now we can mark this in instead of screwing around. So if all goes well, that'll be a little 1 inch tenon to grab them to do the inside of the bowl, as well as I'll be able to drill a 1 inch hole in these little countertops that they're going to sit on, and it'll give me a tenon to sink them into a little bit of a recess. At least that's the plan of the day. Okay, so much for that. Mm, I don't quite think I need that big of a base for that to sit on. It's hard to figure out whether it is a little undercut. Okay, we gotta work. Of course, I picked really the smallest of the bunch right off the bat. Probably should have the dust collector running the whole time. This is walnut. This walnut and I don't necessarily get along. So quick sand, it'll be a quick sand and finish. I'll probably put them all four of these at the same place before I go to the inside. So that works, I think. At least we're going to say that it works. Hopefully I was accurate enough on the 1 inch. You know, some of the dirt. Quick little finish. That way, 3408 as usual. Bring the walnut to life. Try not to get too much on the tenant. Really try not to get any on the tenant, or very, very little. Because I'm going to use regular wood glue to glue that in with. I want to adhere. Wipe off the excess. Little activator to get it rolling. One shot's more than enough. One down. Let's make sure I got the right mark on there. Oh yeah. Oh no. Oh no. Shit. Oh, that sucks. Oh. How are you doing tonight? I'm gonna sit that one off to the side. I don't want to get a bunch of super glue on my face. Why is my pen? Did I make a miscut? I did. Wow. Big time. I need an inch. That thing's are like 3/4. Hmm. Hmm. I'll give it a little bit to dry. And then I'll end up redoing the whole thing, but best laid plans doesn't always work. On to the next one. Okay, why did that not work? It is a little slim. Hmm. All right. It's probably actually There's actually an easier way to mark that. Might look a little goofy, but it will work. So we're trying to make a mortise or a pennant for a mortise, basically. In this case, it's going to be a drill. I used the drill bit to set that caliper, but obviously something isn't quite right on that scenario. So if we use the drill bit, although that actually looks like that's pretty darn close, mark it with the drill bit. Not a whole heck of a lot of difference there. I mean, that should be pretty darn close. But now we know it's going to be right, except I put an eighth of an inch hole in there, which doesn't really matter because that's going to be on the inside of it, as long as I don't get stupid when I do the inside of the bowl and make it too thin. That should be our shape. Let's do something different. Dollhouse miniature crap stuff. I shouldn't say crap. Dollhouse miniatures. These are like these little itty bitty bowls are for like the kitchen sink, bathroom vanity. And if they look small to you, they are. This thing has only started its life at about 2 3/4 of an inch. I find them to be kind of fun to make in a way. Um, they're pretty quick. I'll give you that. Give them that. Plus, I messed up the tenon on the very first one. It's too small. Because what this is a 1 inch tenon, which I'm going to be able to grip with these jaws easy enough. But I also want to be able to drill 1 inch Forstner bit hole. Well, these are not really. These are going to be more like kitchen sink. Let me get this one finished up. I'll go get the one little like kitchen. Um, I guess it'd be like the kitchen counter. It's a little like kitchen cabinet, I guess you'd say, more so than anything. Um, dolls, or you know, all of us that are watching are partaking right now have a little bit of age to us, but when we were kids, I mean, I didn't have dolls. I mean, I have a sister, so she had dolls and whatnot. And those dolls, those days were maybe 6 inches tall, 6 or 7 inches tall. The little Barbies that my granddaughter has measure almost 14 inches tall. So the dollhouse, which is over in the other room because I sprayed the first coat of white on it because it's getting turned white. It's four it's 4 feet tall and almost 3 feet wide. Well, that's good. I could use your help. I have no idea. I'm just sort of making these to go with the size of the furniture so far that I made. As far as like little bowls or something like that to sit around as decoration, I haven't done any of them, but we might. It's kind of fun in a weird way, I guess. Because everything on this thing, you know, I'm thinking half the stuff is too big, but when you put it in there, and she had one of the Barbie dolls along one day last week when she was out here, and it's like, okay, well, that kind of matches with what they look like. But yeah, I'm thinking dollhouse furniture should be way smaller than pretty much everything we've done so far. But it's another one of them scenarios that I'm just a dumbass that's building the stuff, so I'm just kind of building it to what she wants. As usual, my finisher choice, 3408. It doesn't get any easier for something like this, especially. One coat and done. Might be. I will have some very nice polished fingernails when it comes to that because they'll get buffed once they set up and cure, which will be tomorrow sometime. They have a tenant on, so the inside of these I will use um, some fine abrasive paste, which will bring them to a really nice shine on the inside as well. Let's make sure before we go any further with that one. Yes, 1 inch is 1 inch is like a perfect for these long nosed jaws. And we'll sit that one off to the side. Go for the next one. Get rid of a glove. It's always tempting just to leave that glove on, but those Nerdle gloves are not your friend. Comes to the spinning pieces of wood. Surprisingly enough, they will actually grab a hold. They're not as useful as what you think they are. If you do a bunch of small work, as in like if you do a bunch of finials and things like that, they are golden for the finials, but they're very long. So when you clamp down on something like this, if I clamp really hard, you can actually see that it's sort of flexing them. I think that last one works so well with the drill bit. I think we'll just use that again. But as far as other things to do, other like small kind of things, they are nice. I do have the long pin jaws as well, which is what I'm going to use. As long as I get all four of these bowls done, I'm going to try and make four tiny little legs, which is probably going to be the biggest challenge. It's not going to be the challenge of making small legs. As I told my wife, I said I'm not a production turner, so to do four of the same, they might have very little detail to them so that I can get them the same. Stinky walnut. Make sure that we're undercut a little bit. Should be good enough. There we go. Like I say, that's one thing about it is you can see it's only 3 or 4 cuts for the outside of a bowl. That's kind of the neat part. Kind of would be fun if there was a little bit of a, I don't know if there would be a market for such small little bowls, but kind of neat. You can just breeze through them and just 1 inch material, 1 inch rough cut wool. That's what I started with. So you would get a shit ton of pieces made out of one lonely little board. I figure I got to make at least 1 or 2 little vases to put flowers in. My daughter makes paper flowers. She makes the paper flowers for all my weed pots and whatnot. Of course, those flowers, her small flowers, are some of them get down into closer to a nickel size. Most of them are between a nickel and a quarter diameter wise. So if I make a tiny little vase that would only be maybe a half inch diameter or something like that. All kind of weird ideas when you're doing this kind of stuff. This is where it'd be nice to actually have a little helper that would just have a glove on and do this little part, so I don't have to keep changing. But we'll deal with it. We'll do what we gotta do. Get these little things done so we can move on to the challenging part of the legs. Some of this, oh, don't drop the bottle. Some of these little offcuts of walnut, that actually has some nice figure in it even, which is kind of interesting, but I don't know if, I'll probably find out. I don't know if people would find these interesting to see them on a shelf full of craft stuff or not. I think they're a little small for that kind of stuff. But women like to put their jewelry and all that craps in little containers so they don't lose them. So it might actually be worthwhile to make some and see if anybody would purchase such a thing. They certainly wouldn't be expensive, so that's generally an attractive kind of thing for people. So the last of the bowls, except one we got to redo. This little routine of using the drill bit itself to mark the tenant is something I do with the when I do with my Christmas ornaments, which unfortunately I probably should really soon start doing some of them. Even though it's the middle of summer yet, the handful of the ones that I had that were left over from last year were down at one of the places that we have our stuff for sale, and I think now I'm down to one of those. Same way with the lanterns that are basically a Christmas, fall, Christmas time kind of a thing. Don't bother Al, he's sleeping. He's napping. I think some of these actually could be a bit shallower than what they are. Might do that with some of these little smaller ones, because there's probably even where they're at, they're probably still close to an inch high. Yeah, even with the tenant recessed in, that's still 1 inch. So I'll do that from the other side. And my daughter showed me some pictures of this dollhouse before we even started it. I think she found them on eBay or something like that. These people were getting $700 or $800 for the dollhouse itself without anything in it, or at least they were trying to put it that way. And I'm like, well, this sounds kind of profitable. I've kind of already told her that, you know, making this for the granddaughter. I said, you can show it to whoever you want. I said, but don't be taking orders for this kind of stuff. We're telling them, yeah, my dad will make you one. And no, dad won't make you one. If I do, it ain't going to be much different than the people on eBay. Because the dollhouse itself took me a couple days actually to make it. Because it's all solid poplar. It's not a pretty wood, but if you've ever done much woodworking versus the turning, why, there's a whole lot more time involved in making furniture kind of stuff than there is turning. More time involved. So, quick code of 3408, call it a day. Walnut's thirsty, so we'll give it a couple seconds. We have 40 seconds to get our job done, so you can see, well, maybe you can. As I spin it around, there's dull spots. That's places it's soaked in the whole way. Take off the excess and some dirt. Simple paper towel makes a wonderful kind of tack cloth to get the excess dust off. One squirt of activator just to get it rolling along. I noticed I drop it into my gloved hand. Gloved hand will not have any moisture on it, other than maybe a little leftover super glue or something. But if I drop that into my normal, just bare hand, especially to do it that quickly, if your hand has moisture on it, which it most likely does, it will have a tendency to try and adhere to your hand. So here's one that's actually technically already been done, but the tenon size was wrong. Wasn't going to be what we needed it to be. So we're going to take it away and start over. And then we'll do like we've been doing. We'll mark it with the drill bit. A lovely little dark ring. I'm not really trying to make these, making them relatively thin, but we'll have to keep in mind that I now just put an 1/8 inch hole up through there. But hopefully we don't make any miniature funnels. It's really tempting just to leave that a little deeper. Not exactly the shape that I'm feeling overly great about, but that probably will still work. Otherwise, if I cut up there, then I gotta resand, refinish. I don't think I want to do that. Make sure it's a little undercut so that it sits on that outside rim. I think that'll work. We're gonna say it's gonna work, put it that way. Once again, it's such a small amount of material that if it doesn't work, it's not like we lost a big chunk of wood. We just lost a little bit of time out of our life, but so the next really quick part is hollowing them out. You know, this face, tool rest is a bit low. Mm, Give it a feeler. Here's one. I just got done teaching classes. I keep trying to tell them, you want to touch over here, but I'm like, these little ones, I'll just run my finger into those jaws back there. I'm just trying to get an idea of where, I guess technically you could actually drill a little depth hole or something if you wanted to. That still feels plenty. Still feels like it's got more meat in there than what we need. So let's go back to the Richard Raffin routine. I do have a small round nose, semi-round nose scraper that I can go down into there. Really easy, make a nice curve. Off the ridge. I think that will do the trick. Doesn't really like it when I come back up there. It squealed on me right off the bat because there's not a lot of material, a lot of meat up there to get a hold of. Nice sort of little rounded corners. I was so minded and had little pieces of sandpaper cut. I do have a little 1 inch holder that I could actually probably power sand these. But like I say, I don't have. I got a new one the other day, a little different than the other one I had. But I don't have sandpaper. I don't generally don't buy the 1 inch discs. Found it's just as easy to make my own, almost easier. The 1 inch discs that I've gotten in the past just didn't, they don't seem to hold up very well. Seems like the Velcro wants to come off of the backing very quickly. Of course, maybe I'm being too aggressive with them or something, but so one of the little sinks. Of course, my wife didn't necessarily. She was down this evening. She was gone all week, so she didn't get involved in any of this. And she seemed to think the bowl sitting on top of the kitchen counter type thing didn't really jump out at her. I'm like, well, it should really be like oblong or even possibly square, but I'm like, we're not trying to go down that, umpteen hours to try and make something that would resemble somebody's kitchen sink, like a farmhouse sink or something like that. So it's for a little kid. She doesn't know the difference. She's not gonna care. She'll just be happy that she has something. Maybe she'll be happy that she has something that her pappy made for her. We'll see. So one done. Like I say, they're pretty darn quick to make. Of course, my nose is telling me I should just leave that dust collector running. Hopefully it's not too rude. Has a tendency to mess with the mic a little bit, but plenty of room. Always nice when you get it right without having to. I view the scraper as kind of the last resort kind of thing, at least for me. I'd rather do it with the gouge if I can. And this one we were able to get a nice fair curve in there without messing with the scraper, which to me is always a good thing. A little bit of disturbed grain right there on that edge of the bowl. Still feels like there's something there. Hmm. Actually, what's there is a crack. Not a good scenario. I'll just make it a little shorter. Yeah, I think it went away. Looks like it did. A nice little, more of a curved in rim. The downfall of this little curved in rim, this little outside edge right here, just became a super razor blade. Slice your fingers like crazy. That's a 1,000 RPM paper cut, and it ain't pleasant. Go down a little bit. Fingers getting hot. So one of my students yesterday said he's doing some turning. He came to figure out why he can't get a clean cut. Was really sort of what it came down to. And then he proceeded to tell me he was using carbide tools. I did show him a couple things, what little bit I know on the carbide, just from some other people that came and taken classes, how to make them cut smoother and cleaner. It's very time consuming to do it that way, but it does work. But somewhere along the line, he mentioned something about sanding, and I use for the classes, I use the inertia sanders. I won't let them power sand. We don't have dust collection. It's kind of bad enough that use them inertia sanders. It gets really pretty dusty pretty quick. But he made the comment that something about his sanding or whatever. Yeah, my fingers are just getting incinerated. I said, let me guess, you went and put a glove on because of it. He goes, well, yeah, I did. You said you should never. I said, well, yeah, you should never. But I said, I think a lot of people do that. Sanding. I said, it's kind of simple. Slow the lathe down. Whatever speed you're turning at, slow it down. 600 RPM, 700, something like this, 700 or 800 RPMs. More than fast enough. Uh, just super glue the end of my finger. He's like, oh, I never thought of that. I said, well, I guess that's worth the price of admission today then. Now you learn something so simple. Now when you go home, you'll actually be able to sand something easier and quicker just because of the simple thing you cut the speed of the lathe down a long ways. Could have been a little deeper. Oh well, on to the next one. pretty good shape. It's a little thick, I think. More like it. Build the rim in a little bit. These are almost really challenging to get that center little nib out of there. All else fails, I get it by hand without it moving. Hey, Billy, how come I don't ever hear you say you're demonstrating at SWAT? SWAT's one of the places, as far as I know, that would allow the amateurs like us to do such a thing. Everybody must have went to sleep on me. So one more to go. I wanted to look at one little thing in here. Why does it not show up over here? That's just weird. Totally weird is what that would be. Huh. I don't know. Onward and upward we go. Got a little bit of figure in it too. That has a little bit of tiny little bit of picked up grain in here. All the rest of these I started with 220. How are you doing this fine evening? So this is number 4 of these little ones. All this stuff is from my granddaughter's dollhouse. So this started out its life at about I think it's 2 3/4, just over an inch thick. Nice to have a nice big piece of that of walnut that looks like that. It's got some striping in it. You'll see here in a second when I put some 34 weight on it. Lose the dust collector for now. These are going to be, she gets to pick because my wife kind of didn't like the idea. What we come up with was little bowls for like a kitchen sink and a bathroom vanity type thing. The vanity isn't made yet. That'll be a project for, I think she said it's coming back on Tuesday. Well, I told her when she left on Thursday last week, she was going to come on Friday. I'm like, nah, you can't come Friday. So I got classes to teach, so I'm going to be on my feet, traipsing around down here for several hours before I go spend way too many hours. Yeah, that means we get it around there. It's got some nice tiger stripe kind of figure in it. Like, so that's the last one. This was probably the first one. This is kind of rushing it a little bit, but and then the next thing I'm going to do, I need to change some jaws. So how I'm going to address the inside of these little things technically should be tomorrow. The 34 weight is best left and give it its 24 hours to totally cure. Get the best shine of it. But if you want to be impatient, use a little abrasive paste, the fine abrasive paste. The outside I can buff on the buffing wheels. That's easy, just as easy. If you didn't have buffing wheels though, it certainly will work to do the inside and the outside of a bowl, provided you still have a tenon on, which I always have the tenon on to the very end. So that brought it up to a nice simple shine, silky smooth. So we'll do all four of them. I'm trying to do them in sort of the order that I did them in. If it's end of the world if it doesn't.
Yeah, 3 out of 4. Like I said, the outside I'll just buff. We'll not do that tonight, though. I don't think. I'm more interested in trying to make miniature legs. Billy's napping. Don't bother him. That is kind of fun on Wednesday night, though, to go down through the participants when it gets to be that 9 o'clock or after, at least for me, I'm on East Coast time. See how many of them people are kind of checking the inside of their eyelids. And there's a few, quite a few actually. Okay, so that's all of them done. Inside and out. The outside will get buffed instead of using abrasive paste. I mean, theoretically, I could buff the outside if I had some little cup thing in there to do that. I don't really have one made that it would be that small. So those tenon, these all, if you notice, they have a tenon on them. The tenon is sized to go in a 1-inch drill hole. At least that's the plan. I did use a drill bit to mark them. So hopefully my little brain is working correctly. You can go over here so we can see what we're doing. We're going to switch jaws over to the pin jaws, because the next part is um, the legs for the table, which will be without a doubt a bit of a challenge, because we're starting out with a piece of wood that's going to be about 5/8 of an inch square by what I did cut them 4.5 or 5 inches long. Anyway, the only thing I have to hold them is these pin jaws, which does a wonderful job. The other year when I made a bunch of those, what did they call them? Across the pond, they call them gonks. Over here, they're little gnomes type things. See some of the people inside the pond, they still make them. We made a whole bunch. My dad and I made, I don't know, we probably made 20 or 30 of them, and pretty much sold them. We went to a couple different craft shows, and they sold actually pretty well, pretty quick. Another one of those projects that's actually pretty quick. I think you spend more time screwing around with the hair on them than anything else. And the hair makes a mess. If you've never dealt with any of that fake, they're called fake fur. Got to use like an X-Acto knife to cut it rather than scissors. And to cut it from the back and then glue it on. And you don't want to glue it on the whole length of it where it sort of mats down the fur. I just have that little, I did it up in the living part of the house. And when you're done, you had to go get the sweeper and run the sweeper because the little hair stuff just floated everywhere, including all over you, and stick fast to you. This is another set of jaws that I have that doesn't get you. It's wonderful for doing what I'm going to do next, where those little the little gnomes and things like that, or really small finials or something. I was making all them little noses. Start out with a ½ inch or 5/8 inch little square blocks, and fairly long. I could leave them like 6 inches long or something like that, 5 or 6 inches long. Shove all of it that I wasn't using the whole way back into these jaws, and at that diameter, you could actually do a really pretty long piece because it could go back through the base of the chuck. It could actually, if you really wanted it to, it could actually go back into the spindle at that diameter. All you were doing was making a little nose. It actually worked fairly decently. Okay, so we'll need a live center, but I'm going to use the really small tip in it. Tip is one that I got from Cindy Droza years ago. I think she still makes them. They go in a one-way style live center. About 3/8 inches, 3/8 of an inch in diameter, something like that. Had a couple different ones. This sort of has like a cup on the end with a point. Seemed to work pretty good. I think the really challenging part here is going to be, maybe not. Let's say trying to mark a center point down here. What might be more difficult. I think I'll just use one with the point. I don't think I want to use the spring point one. My thought is the spring point one is liable to snap this thing. Just need a tiny little point in there so that, put this somewhere, that'll hot for it. I'm not going to go back very far into them jaws either. So we'll just sort of snug that up. Ruler says these want to be um, I think we're going to go for the 3.5 inches long. So that's going to be the top. And skirt, this comes down. Let's just try it 5/8. This is the wonders of walnut too. I won't be able to see that one spin. Guess I can see it. Add another corner to it. Be able to see it a little better. I have a hatred for working with walnut to do any kind of furniture work or anything like that. Okay, if I move that camera over that way, maybe widen out just a tad, and that should work. Okay, so it is 7:30. So our weapon of choice is going to be a skew, I think. So my plan is to leave this square, and we'll do like a pommel here, and probably just maybe just a simple tapered leg is what I'm thinking. It'll be things this small, so we'll see how this goes. So on our line, our pommel, kind of straight pommel though, I think. Let's look at it once. Probably why we cut 6 pieces of this. Yeah, I think that'll work. Gotta be round first. Turn that round. If only I was actually a designer of things, I'd probably make out better. Tool rest now is too high. It's going to be a really weird looking leg. I do not trust doing the beads, that little of a bead with skew. Okay, that'll work. That bead should have been the whole way up the top, not at the bottom. And, hmm, can we? this is going to be an interesting one. Better to be lucky than good any day of the week. Now I can bring up our little center point. Cut a straight line back here. This should give us a sharp shoulder. And there's going to be a parting tool to create a little tiny. I'm not digging what it looks like, but proof of concept, I guess you would say. Not very clean in that corner. Uh, Probably could break it right here easily. I got to sand down there at that end. Knock that off of there. And then it brings a little support back. I know my big fat finger's in the road, but yeah, I don't know. Kind of with the fact that they're actually fairly easy to do. Don't necessarily like the grand gesture of the shape, but we'll get her smoothed up a bit. And of course, no sanding on the pommel part of it. Ouch. Don't run your fingers into the pommel, it's kind of sharp. We'll sand the faces of the pommel a little bit, knock the razor blade corner off. Mm-hmm. That shall work. Kind of a goofy design, but gotta work. Now, memory says 3.5. 3.5 is what it is, so we'll part off or not part off, but set it. So I'm gonna drill a 1/4 inch hole. Let's make it bigger. I'll go 5/16. These are generally, for me, these are a nightmare when you do these. You usually end up getting them too thick.
Walnuts, dang, kill you. So, 1/8" parting tool. Tailstock supports. Off we go. Now we're going to be in the next scenario of, I don't want to tell you curb at the top. Let's go back to our friend the skew. I made that cut up there with the skew. It's a little bit sort of curved. Now we'll see if we can ruin a leg before we get started right. I got it straighter somewhat. Should really be setting a diameter. Hopefully we didn't already go under it. No, thank goodness. Um, I should do, get the one that's brown at a bit of an angle so that we could possibly undercut that just a shade. A little snug. Touch it and it'll probably be a little loose. The glue will take up the rest. If I get it too loose, I could use 5-minute epoxy. Okay. Oh, it looks pretty. It looks livable. I like that on our 3.5 inches, so that's where we're at and where we're going to keep it. I'm not sure about this. Not sure about the shape, but I'm going to throw a little finish on it just in case. We'll move on to the next one and see. Next, come up with something that more resembles a traditional leg.
Why didn't you put your glove on? Get super glue on your fingers again. Live with that. Wipe off the excess, as we do with everything else. Now the real question will be, even though I don't necessarily like, I think the design could be nicer, but the simple thing is, can we repeat that 3 more times instead of 4, whether it's super likable or not. This part up here I'll just cut off with the handsaw when I'm ready for that. Let's see. I want to keep that handy though. We will need that. Also, we need another semi-center mark. These are almost a challenge just to mark a center line on them. They're pretty daggone good as far as making them square though. Put a little poke in the middle. Doesn't take much because this little center on this thing is very, very small. Far enough. Okay, so now theoretically, yeah, theoretically it could not. Let's pick that up. 3.5 overall, 5/8 down from the top. So 3.5, 5/8. Do all across there. Actually, grab a little square, make it look like we're some sort of a serious kind of person doing this. So we'll do it on 2 sides. That way, hopefully, I can see it while it's spinning. I was able to on the last one, so I'm going to assume I can on this one. A little bit of pressure, not much. Back to our friend, askew. So this time let's be smarter than the average bear and start to the right, a little bit to the right of the funnel, so we can sneak up on it this time. Just trying to get my line to sort of disappear. It's not quite round. I'm going to do something. I can't do that. Let's just stop it. It'd be easier if I could actually put it where I truly need it. But we can't, so we're just going to have to. I could if I cut that off. Let's do that. That might make my life a little simpler. Just use a Japanese pull saw and cut it off. Easier if I would grab it in the vise. Bear with me a second. This is what you call thinking, trying to think on your feet. That's what I would call it. Now I don't have that big knob down there. So now we should be able to kind of lay that on there where it belongs. Mark this little bead. Mark it a little deeper. Color around. Not totally round there right now. I think that will, hopefully, yes, we can see them. Plus, to the outside of her bead. And we should be able to roll that down into there. Such. The other one rolled into it the other way. Like that. Bead that's still not round. Yeah, I'm going to do that with this. Do that last little bit with this thumb down. Oh, hit you guys. So we're on the live center, it doesn't work very well. Oh, that sucker's still not round. Um, corner should be good. One last little cut on the pommel. Clean up in that corner. Leave a little V groove in there. Leave a little V groove. Doesn't really need to be though. Definitely not.
Definitely not a perfect match, but this area up here is a little heavy. That'll be better. I gotta taper that end down too. First things first, I'll do the bead. Little beads with the spindle gouge for me is something that I do quite often, so that becomes easy. It is a little pointed, but the pointed part will go away quick enough. Shouldn't be moving the tool rest. It's kind of close to everything. Okay, so we're going to taper. So just give it a little support. Probably still wants to chatter a little bit for me. Nothing drastic. Bring that support back. And then we make a clean cut down into that corner. It just sort of swooped in a little bit. It kind of work. We're going to say it's going to work that way. Should make the clean cut on the corners with the skew though. At least close to that. Parting tool could very easily chip that up. And we would have wasted the 10 minutes of what we already did. I'm going to grab some fresh sandpaper. The sandpaper's like everything else, it gets dull. Now something this small, if it's dull, the little space between the ears is going to say, well, it's not spinning as quickly or as easily, so I'm just going to push harder on it. And pushing harder on something this small would probably mean that you would break it, could break it. So then we really would have wasted the time. Okay. So this is like a 2, 3, 4, and 6 routine. 220, 320, 400, 600. What I do with them. A little touch of the paper towel in between. Clean off any leftover bits of abrasive. Also using the cut end. These are little squares of sandpaper. The two cut ends go together, and that's what I'm using to get into those really nice, fine, crisp corners. It's just a finer bit to get in there. And my daughter will show up on Tuesday and say, they're not long enough. Kind of kind of entertaining to do though. Probably not very entertaining to watch, but I'm being entertained with it, put it that way.
I like it. I like things that are a challenge. Something out of the scope of something I would normally do. So, and that's not really good. Let's cut that down because I'm on the kind of on the long side of the line. Port back. Okay. Now it started anyhow, and it's pretty straight, which is a plus. Of course, we won't find out whether it's truly straight until I put it up against into a flat piece of wood. All the sharp corners are gone. And I set my diameter out here versus in there where it really counts first. Almost feels like we could have. We're still a little tight. Always a plus. We'll take just some dust off. That should be more than enough. Still don't necessarily go over there as easily as what one would hope. I think all I'm going to do with this one, I should have did this one with the other one, is put some little grooves in there for the glue to sink into. Maybe just one little itty bitty dust cut. Another place back there to cut it off. Yep, that will work. A little finish. Going through a lot of paper towels tonight, screwing around with a lot of this little stuff, but those people need a job too, so they will make some more. It really looks like should clean that lens on that camera. I forgot I was doing some wet wood with it. A little bit of trusty 3408. And that's another one done. You see the other half of that paper towel, that would be good. Now I'm going to wipe the lid off. the excess. Call it good. Goes out of the old activator. Keep the glove on. Tail still let me do this. Yep. Okay. So let's see how we did so far. Definitely not the professional spindle turner, but I'm gonna say it's probably close enough for what it's gonna be. For some dumbass that doesn't do that kind of work, doesn't really have an interest in doing that kind of work either. Necessarily like to do that production kind of work. My working part of my working career was doing production kind of work. Or in the woodworking field, but man, those squares are hard to hold even to mark a center. I definitely commend those people that you see on Instagram that are across the pond there. They're doing this, and they're not, for the most part, not doing this teeny tiny stuff, but doing this type of work all day, every day. I think that would drive me bananas. So, wonder, can I do that? It's best done square. I'm measuring. Those individuals would do it. They had to do well. They're not going to do 4 at a time. If they're going to do 4 at a time, sure they just fumble around and do it sort of like I would do it. But they're used to doing 20 or 30 or 40 or something like that of everything. So they have to make it a little bit more. So if we take the pencil point, take them two across, around. Will that make it easier? Possibly. Okay. Tight. To the stock back a little bit further. Get just that little went out. This is actually my smallest tool rest that I have, so I can't necessarily get totally in here where I'd like to. Oh, you dummy, you can move out all day long. You're inside the. I'm having a brain fade. The life center is only so long. That, that doesn't spin, so that can touch that. I think. Let's not say we did. Let's come in on a bit of an angle. Alright, yeah. I'm used to doing things of that diameter. The skew wants to cut up at 11 o'clock, but if you get up beyond that, it still might be too high. Mark where our beads are at, or bead is at. Probably unnecessary. Close enough. Go around. Gentle, gentle, gentle. I'd say that one's probably much deeper than the other one. For some reason, doesn't look remotely correct yet already. Okay, the B needs to be down further. Okay. Yes. That's still not down. That's still not round right there where that bead is at. Looked like a good plan, but wasn't quite as good as what it thought it was going to be. Alright, that bead is about that size. A little V cut to make the have room. Mm, and how them production turners get away with that, not moving they don't, you don't ever see them move their tool rest down to do any kind of, what little bit they do with the spindle guide, which is where the problem lied right there. Spindle gouges in hand. This is kind of a little bulky. Make it a little bit narrow, a little bit thinner, which will make it look longer. If that'll be better. Be an exciting time to have a nice catch though. Peel and cut with a skew is a cut that anybody can do. Great place to start if you're afraid of it. Does wonders. Very easy to do, as you saw there. You can go from a square to a round in a very big hurry. Very clean. Most woods are cut cleanly though now. Put it that way. Sorry for the boring kind of stuff, but something good to try. I've never tried anything like this. You can try your patience a little bit. And we'll see whether we're close enough. We're going to be close enough. Like I say, I'm not the one to do an exact duplicate of something. My philosophy is close is good enough. They're not stair balusters, so they're going to be 2 inches apart. These will be about minimum about 4 inches apart. So and I don't think my soon to be 3-year-old granddaughter is really going to sit there and study them and say, "Hey, Pappy, they're not quite the same." So got that one better than I did any of them. A little groove. It has somewhere to go. And fuzzed up the pommel a little bit, but nothing a little bit of sandpaper ain't going to take care of. Sharp edges. Call that another one bites the dust. As much of the dust off of it as I can. Gloves won't let you put your hand in there too many times before you rip them. Or the old trusty 3408. It's really going to stick to the glove because there's already some excess super glue on there from before. It's peel another piece of paper towel off a little with it. But it's better it being on them gloves, on the gloves rather than on my fingers. A little harder to get off my fingers than it is a glove. Not to mention it gets very hot very quickly when it starts to set off. One more to go and we're going to call it a day. We're already past time anyhow, but we're going to do one more while the brain is in this mode. Let's go around the marking. Hopefully my marking is accurate enough. And if I can see, I think it is. The last thing I want to do is have to try and take a little bit off of the bottom of these legs. Not that I may not have to, but that would be the kind of hard part of doing something that's sitting on the floor like that. Sitting on a flat surface, I guess you'd say. You know, one of the symposiums, I think that was like Kimberly Winkle did a three-legged stool. So that was a pretty neat project. Kind of neat project. And she was actually able to do it in a allotted time, which was like an hour and a half. It looked like I had that one perfectly centered, but you'll get the round. I thought it was kind of something that at some point maybe I would try and do as like a class type project. But I've never really done one myself, so and finish the pommel. At least what hopefully will be the finish of the pommel. I didn't put any marks otherwise this time, so this time I'll just use the original. I think it'll be better doing it this way than the way I just did the other one. I think that'll be probably a little bit more accurate. Mark our bead. Always. There we go. So I'm trying to get into that corner really crisp. I still didn't do it. Without leaving a little V in the bottom. Okay. Okay. Needs to come back a little bit farther down to the corner. Open it out. Take a look. Make sure we don't have anything totally messed up. This corner up here is not as good as the rest were. We'll try one more lonely little time. Just use my spindle gouge and go down into that little corner. There we go. I can live with that. Get back closer to that line. I think that'll work. One thing for sure, sanding something this small is not much of it. If we got a part of that ish would be the fact that we did get a nice clean cut. Perfect bead would be one that you don't have to sand, but when it comes to this size of piece, for me, that's not going to happen. This is looking, that's rounded enough. Looking at my pommel at the top, just at the top of the leg, not the clear top. Didn't look like it had much of a curve to it. But when I stop and look at it, it does. So it's going to be a-okay. I'm not trying to feel whether it's smooth. I'm trying to get rid of the salt. Any of the grit that might have been left behind by the other piece. So we know it's already smooth. Just leaving other bits of sandpaper behind. The last grit maybe gotta do that first. Back to there. Mm, just a shade. I mean, it fits over it, but
a couple little grooves for this glue. A nice little bit of sanding.
last little bit of sandings with 400, in case you're interested, which you probably aren't. Probably tired of watching me do the same thing over and over. Clean off our dirt.
Get off our excess.
Kick it off. One squirt. That's all we need. Not up close and personal either.
Guess I could have left that glue on. Take this out, but oh well. Just be gentle, careful, and grab it back there. So now, I guess the real scenario.
The real fun part would be, did we get them lined up? It's going to be the harder part. Do we have four the same? No. Are they going to be close enough? I would say yes. There's really only one that's more
Noticeable than the other three. Three are closer than the fourth. The beat is too high on the one. But, like I say, for a 3-year-old's dollhouse, I think that'll work just fine.
yeah. I'll ask the powers that be, other than the wife and the daughter, and see whether we have to make more. But hopefully not.
Otherwise, that's going to be a wrap. We're actually well over our time. So I appreciate everybody that came and hang out. And everybody have a wonderful week. Anybody have any questions or comments? Now's the time. Otherwise, we're going to call it a night. As soon as I find my mouse on the screen, we're going to call it a night. There we go. Found it. Everybody have a good week. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. You too, Billy.